Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Childcare Director's Chair, where Erica Sacoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Childcare Director's Chair.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. We're so happy that you're here today. Thank you for tuning in to our daily tips. You know, as a childcare owner, ensuring the well-being and development of the children entrusted in our care is the utmost of importance. And one essential tool that can greatly help contribute to the smooth functioning of your childcare center is a well-thought-out parent handbook. In today's informative episode, we will discuss how your parent handbook serves as a valuable resource, providing parents with critical information, guidelines, while also establishing a strong foundation for effective communication and collaboration. The first thing is you have to have clear communication. A well-crafted parent handbook acts as the central hub for all information. It ensures that parents are well informed about the center's policies, procedures, and expectations. And by clearly outlining the important details such as operating hours, fees, enrollment procedures, health and safety protocols, and disciplinary policies, you establish a transparent and consistent approach. And this clarity fosters trust and it minimizes misunderstandings, enabling parents to feel confident in their decision to entrust their children in your child care center. You have to have consistency and standardization. And so the handbook really helps maintain that consistency in the delivery of care and services across your child care center, particularly if you have more than one location like we do. And it provides a framework for your staff to follow and ensure that all the children are treated fairly and equally in your program. Also, by outlining your center's philosophy, curriculum, and daily routines, you create a standardized environment that promotes stability and supports children's development. And it also is a great way to have parent involvement and partnership in your program. And a comprehensive parent handbook ensures that parental involvement, it fosters a strong partnership between the parents and your child care center. You see, when you include information about parent conferences, volunteer opportunities, and ways that parents can support their children's learning at home, you actively engage your parents in your our children, educational journey. And that collaboration enhances the overall quality of care as parents become active participants in their child's growth and development. Nowadays, you know, emergency procedures are really just so important. We see it on a regular basis in the news, and you have to make sure that in the event of an emergency, having a well-documented plan for your parents and your staff is so important. It really can be life or death. So you have to make sure you include emergency procedures, your evacuation plans, the contact information for parents and emergency services. And when you provide parents with this vital information, you can instill the confidence and peace of mind by assuring them that their child's safety is your top priority. And the other part that you really have to make sure that you have in mind when you're developing a parent handbook is the legal compliance, as child care centers must adhere to various legal requirements and regulations, and a comprehensive parent handbook serves as a valuable tool to ensure that we remain in compliance. And by including the policies related to child protection, health and safety, privacy, we demonstrate our commitment to meeting and exceeding legal standards. This not only protects the children in your care, but it also safeguards your center's reputation and license. So that's kind of an overview of what and why you need to have a great handbook. So what are the components, right? So let's think about, I can think off the top of my head, at least 30 essential areas that you have to cover in your parent handbook. Well, first and foremost, you want to start with the welcome letter. And the purpose of that is to welcome people into your program. It's a great way to give the first impression. Really make sure that you're articulating your why, your vision, your mission, and in how your program, brings that to life. When you're talking about your philosophy and mission statement, you want to make sure that you emphasize the need to clearly communicate why you have chosen that philosophy and explain how it helps parents understand the values and goals of your daycare. Many parents will look at 3 or 4 options before selecting one, and they may look at a Montessori school. They may look at a play-based program. They may look at a religious or community program. So you want to be able to articulate the best that you can as to your values, your goals, your mission, how you teach children, and why you have selected that. Another piece that you want to make sure is that you have operating hours and holidays. You want to provide detailed information about the daycare's operating hours, including drop-off and pick-up procedures and times. You want to discuss the importance of any holiday closings and any emergency closings and how parents will be notified. One thing that we do at our program is we make a community calendar, and we send that out in January of each year. And that community calendar has all of the pre-planned school closings and holidays that we are closed. So parents get that at the beginning of each year. It helps them when they're planning their vacations or, getting coverage for days that they may work that the center is closed. And you also want to discuss not only the holidays that you're closed, but maybe what holidays you celebrate in the program while you're open, such as, do you celebrate birthdays or religious holidays? Because there are some families that do celebrate holidays and there are some that do not. And so you want to be aware of that, and you want to let people know what they can expect in terms of holidays at your program. The handbook should also explain the enrollment process. So explain the step-by-step process for how you would enroll a child in the daycare. You have to make sure you include information such as the required documents, any fees that are connected with that registration, and any necessary forms that need to be completed before a child attends, such as immunization records, such as emergency contact information.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this as being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
Another part you need to consider is your health and safety policies. You need to discuss the importance of addressing health and safety policies in detail. How do you determine what is considered a sick child? What are the illness guidelines? Who gives medicine or medication administration? Do you do it at all? Some centers don't. Some centers do. Some are somewhere in between. So what is your policy? Not only who gives it, but when it is given, how it is stored. All of those real details really are a great way to make sure you have covered all the bases. Also, emergency procedures and child-proofing measures. So, what measures have you taken to ensure the safety of the children? Do you have locks on the gates? Do you have a security system? Do you have a camera system? Do you practice fire drills and lockdown drills? All those things that you do to prevent any, well, I guess you can't prevent, but, anything that you do to ensure that every step has been taken to ensure children's safety. You want to have that all as part of your handbook. The other thing is I would outline too your policy on staffing requirements, such as do they have to have CPR? Do they have to have first aid? What other types of training do your staff have around health and safety procedures? You want to add in the handbook communication and parent involvement and explain how effective communication between the daycare program and the parents happens. So many of you use an app to communicate. Some of you may still use paper forms. You may have electronic and paper newsletters, calendars. So whatever ways you communicate with families, that should be outlined in your parent handbook. Also, how do you handle parent-teacher conferences, opportunities for parent involvement in the program? How do people know when those opportunities come up, when they're available, how frequent? Some programs require parent involvement and others make it, based on if the parent is interested. So whatever your expectations are in terms of how you want parents to communicate and how you want parents to be involved in the program should be outlined as part of your handbook. You also want to talk about the daily schedule and routines. You want to provide a clear schedule that outlines the activities, mealtime, nap time, outdoor play, any types of additional programs that you offer. If you come, we have a program called the Tumble Bus that comes to our program during the school year. They come every other week. So if you have something that is a regular routine that is part of a monthly or weekly program, I know some programs have language. They may do sign language or music programs, anything like that that parents need to know about that happens regularly or ongoing, you want to have as part of your handbook. And explain how this helps parents understand the structure and rhythm of the child's day, because a nap time at a center might look different than it does at home. And as children are in the program for longer periods of time, they start to sync up with the rest of the daily schedule, with the exception of infants. But you want to talk about that. Curriculum and learning experiences and learning goals. So talk about the information that the Child Care Center uses for curriculum, such as we use the Rhode Island Early Learning Standards. We use creative curriculum. What types of curriculum tools are you using? How often do you do assessment? Do you do report cards? Anything around there? Do you create portfolios? Anything around that subject that parents can expect to receive or be part of as part of our educational approach as a program, you want to have that as part of your handbook. You want to talk about nutrition and meal plans. Does your center provide meals? Do you provide morning snack and afternoon snack? Do you provide a breakfast? Are there expectations as far as if a parent sends in food from home, what should it be? Should it meet a certain guidelines? Does it have to have certain components? Also, you want to think about how do they send it to you. If your program has a refrigerator, that's fantastic. If it doesn't have a refrigerator, like for instance, if you run a summer camp, it may be an outside all day program. So, best ways to keep food cool so it doesn't spoil during the hot months. You want to talk about that. I know a lot of programs also will not heat up food for children. There are some guidelines around that in different states in terms of microwaves. So best practice usually will be to have the parent heat it up at home and then send it in a thermos that keeps it warm. You want to talk about nap time and rest time. So you really want to explain your program's policies and procedures thoroughly. And this is kind of one of those areas that some parents have very strong feelings about. And you want to make sure that if their child is a child who doesn't nap, you explain what accommodations you make for non-nappers, what type of activities you have for non-nappers. You also may have parents who only want their children to nap for a certain period of time, which might be shorter than what your program typically does. So really, this is kind of one of those hot buttons that you really want to talk with families about to make sure it's a good fit for the family and you. Your discipline and behavior management policy also is another strong area that really needs to be worded very clearly. What the steps are, what do you do when a child has behavior problems or challenges such as biting or hitting teachers, or isn't able to have impulse control for extended periods of time. So what does that look like? What is the first step, the second step, the third step, the fourth step? What services do you have available? What partnerships do you have that are on site? What tips and strategies do your teachers use? What certifications do they have? All of that should be in your discipline and behavior management, as well as how you positively redirect. Training guidelines, you really want to talk about how you do toilet training, what the expectation is. Some programs will not allow a preschooler into their preschool room until they're toilet trained. So if that is the case with your program, you want to make sure that that expectation is very clear. Field trips and outings and how you handle that. As many programs take field trips, they may rent a bus, they may have daycare vans, there may be sign-up sheets. Certainly you need permission slips for any field trip or outing that you are taking children out of your location. But even sometimes when you have someone coming in, a guest that's on site, having some type of policy in place where the parents still sign off that they're giving their child permission to participate in that event. And providing details, about the supervision and how the ratios change when you take a child outside of the building as opposed to inside of the building. And again, each state will have different requirements. So you want to just outline what the additional supports are for children who leave the building for outings. Allergy policies absolutely have to be addressed, the importance of allergies and sensitivities, and how you handle allergy emergencies, including food restrictions. Many schools do not allow peanut butter because of the oils, and it can, you don't really always have to ingest it to have a emergency if you have a peanut allergy. So that's why schools are so strict with that. But again, what is your food restrictions and what are the emergency protocols should somebody have an allergic reaction while they are in your care? Again, talking about medication administration, what staff members are allowed to give medication? Do you have a school nurse on site? Is it just the admin team that are able to give medication? How will you log it? What is needed from a pediatrician to even administer medication? Again, I would copy and paste some of the pieces from your state's regulation book into your handbook in regards to what can and cannot be done around medication administration. And also your illness guidelines. Now, I think that we've kind of all been, very focused on this for the last 4 years in terms of, as long as a child can keep up with the pace of the day, they don't have anything that is contagious. How do you notify people if there is something contagious in the classroom or in the center? So really just talking about when it is okay to send your child, when it is okay, to get a clearance from a doctor, when they should keep a child home. Definitely around fevers, vomiting, diarrhea, you really have to get real clear on those policies. You have to outline your emergency procedures, such as how frequently do you have fire drills? How frequently do you practice your evacuation plans? And are the evacuation plans shared with the parents? And how will you contact parents if there is an emergency and you need to evacuate the building? where will the children go? Is it to a next door location? Is it to another location that you have at the daycare? Is it, 2 buildings over? So wherever it is that you have created as part of your emergency plan, you have to share that with parents. We did talk about briefly the staff qualifications in certain areas, but sharing what staff qualifications and trainings that your lead teachers have and your assistant teachers have, and that just really helps assure parents that their children are in capable hands. You want to share the staff to child ratio and how it's maintained. Maybe it is you have lower ratios than what the state requires. You have an extensive substitute list. You do a 1-to-2 ratio in an infant room instead of a 1-to-4. So you want to really just outline how you have your childcare ratios maintained and your procedures of what you do when a teacher leaves, the ways that you maintain it. You want to talk about payments and fee policies, such as payment schedules, how often are payments due, the methods of payment that you accept, are there any late fees and when are they imposed? You also need to discuss the importance of financial matters and how quickly they need to be cleaned up. So maybe you have a policy that says by week 2, if you owe more than 2 weeks, your child cannot come till the balance is paid in full. Some centers do 1 week. Some centers don't do any, and they say, if you didn't pay for this week, your child's not able to attend. So really be transparent on what you expect in terms of when you'll get paid and the fees that apply. When do you terminate a child? Or what are the policies if a family wants to withdraw their child from your program? So is there a form that families have to fill out when they want to withdraw from the program? Is there a certain amount of weeks that they have to give you notice? Is there a certain amount of weeks that you give a family notice if you're terminating them? So that all should be very clearly written. What are your confidentiality and privacy policies? So you want to really discuss the policies you have regarding family confidentiality and privacy. For some families, this is very, very important, especially if they have custody issues or the state is involved with their children, or you're caring for foster children, and where they are as far as a child care center is really so crucial that it is kept undisclosed for their safety. So really explain how you make sure that parents feel assured that their personal information is protected. Not only their personal information, but even their payment information, which is why I really love when people have access to do self-pay directly through a secured website so that their parents' information is never even in your program. It isn't at your center. It isn't something that anybody can get their hands on. So using an app in today's world for payments just makes the most sense for you legally. Photography and media releases. So there's lots of social media out there. There's lots of photography going on and taking snapshots and pictures. So you really want to make sure that you explain the daycare's policies in regards to photos, how they will be used. Make sure you get parental consent before using any children's images for promotional purposes. Making sure it's okay to have a child in a class photo that may go out to all the families in the program. So, really want to make sure that you explain how you handle that in your program. Also, lost and found. So, depending on the age of the children you have, I know our summer camp kids, they forever we're chasing them, and although the things are labeled, we're forever chasing them, saying, "Hey, you left your water bottle, you left your sandal, you left your towel." So lost and found. How do you get those items back to families? Where do you keep them in the center so parents can check? How often do you dispose of items that are unclaimed? So all those things really need to be in your lost and found policy. And then what if somebody loses something of value, such as a gold earring or something like that? So what is your program's policy on being responsible for those items, or cell phones or tablets or computers? And again, we work with children who are school age, and there are often times where in our state, the schools go into DL days and children are bringing in plenty of electronics and headphones and things like that. So how do we get those things back to families? So that needs to be part of your handbook. Your transportation services, such as your routines, what routes are you driving on, the safety measures that you have, your pickup policy and drop-off times and procedures, what kind of restraints are you using in the van as far as booster seats, car seats, again, depending on the age of the children, that needs to be articulated in your transportation plan. Inclement weather policies. Now, we're here in New England, so we get snowstorms pretty frequently, although the last 2 years, not so much. But in the past, the snowstorms. When do you close? Do you close at predicted snow? Do you close at actual snow? Do you close for extreme heat days? So, you really want to be able to let parents know so that they can pre-plan. We do have a lot of people in our center that work in the healthcare field or retail field, and both of those typically stay open through inclement weather. So those families still need childcare. So they have to make accommodations. So if they know ahead of time whether you're closing, or they know the protocols in which closing occurs at the center, it helps them plan better. And it, again, provides an opportunity to not have misunderstandings and to really have the best care for not only the children, but the best partnership with the parents. Outlining any closures, delays, and alternative arrangements, and then where would they find them? So do you put it on your Facebook? Do you send it through an app? Do you call the local news stations? Do you do all three? So how would they find out that information? If you decide to close at 4 o'clock in the morning, where will they find that information by, 6 o'clock when you open? You want to cover grievance and complaint procedures. And so if a parent has a problem, where can they address it? Who do they see? So that you can establish open and transparent processes for conflict resolution. Additional services and programs that you have, you want to highlight those, as I did mention that earlier, extracurricular activities or tutoring or homework help or any additional services that you offer in your program. How are those handled? Parent resources and support. You need to provide a list of external resources and support networks available for parents, and discuss, the importance of connecting families with helpful information and assistance, and why you have it in place and how you use it. And parents really are very happy when you have those additional support services, especially those who this is their first child. And sometimes those services are just other parent networks, like places that they can go to connect with other parents and have support. So they don't always have to be, if a child has a medical issue or disability, they could just sometimes just be for social and emotional support for families. Lastly, I would say, an acknowledgement and agreement of the handbook itself. So having a last page where parents sign off and acknowledge that they understand everything in the handbook and that they agree to all the policies in the handbook, that they've read it and they've understood it. The other thing I want to say to childcare owners is I really encourage you to review and update your handbooks regularly to make sure that we're meeting the evolving needs of parents and children. I think many centers are or have redone their handbooks in the last year. I would say that's probably very fair to say. And if you haven't, I think you really need to look at that. So with that, I conclude, although a very lengthy episode, I really would like to conclude with having a well-constructed parent handbook. It's just a fundamental asset for any childcare owner. It serves as a comprehensive guide. It facilitates effective communication. It establishes consistency. It promotes parent involvement. It ensures emergency procedures and preparedness, and it ensures legal compliance. And it also provides parents with a clear understanding of the center's policies and procedures that you create for a nurturing environment where children can thrive. and parents can feel confident in their choice as a child care provider that you are. So invest in the time and effort to create a thoughtful parent handbook and reap the benefits of a well-informed and satisfied parent community. And that's it for today's episode of Child Care Director's Chair. I am your host, Erica Sacoccio. We want to thank you so much for your support. If you enjoyed this episode, could you please kindly leave us a review on your favorite listening platform? Thank you again. Hope to hear you and see you tomorrow.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Child Care Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Child Care Director's Chair.